Welcome to the SU Ag Center's 20th Celebration Speaker Series. Today's guest speaker is Dr. Adell Brown.
Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. I am Floyd Harris, and I serve as a student ambassador for the Southern University College of Agriculture, Family and Consumer Sciences. It is my honor to welcome you to the Southern University Agriculture Research and Extension Center's second event in the 15-minute, 5-part speaker series, all leading up to July 1st, which is the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the Southern University Agriculture Research and Extension Center. Please use the chat box to make comments or ask questions. Any questions not answered will be posted with answers on the SU Ag Center's 20th anniversary webpage. At this time, I would like to recognize Dr. Orlando F. McMeans, Chancellor of the Southern University Agriculture Research and Extension Center and Dean of the Southern University Agriculture, Southern University College of Agriculture, Family and Consumer Sciences. Dr. McMeans began his tenure at Southern University in September of 2019. He brings a plethora of knowledge and experience relating to agriculture, research, extension, and the 1890 land grant community. On behalf of Dr. McMeans, I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Adell Brown, for taking time out of his schedule to provide pertinent information relating to his SU Ag Center roles and experiences. Thank you to the SU Ag Center 20th Anniversary Committee members for organizing the events that will take place throughout this year. And last but not least, thank you to all the attendees joining us on this webinar. It is our hope that you will also join us on June 9th for our next speaker series event with Dr. Gina Eubanks. Now, I would like to introduce Mr. Garrick Bro, who also serves as a student ambassador. He will introduce our speakers.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'll be introducing to our speaker, Dr. Adell Brown. Dr. Adell Brown retired in 2016 as Vice Chancellor for Research for the Southern University Agricultural Research and Extension Center at Southern University A&M System. Dr. Brown previously served as Vice President for Planning, Research, and Development for Mississippi Valley State University. Most recently, he served as the Interim Dean of Finance, Administration, and Institutional Effectiveness for Housatonic and Gateway Community Colleges in Connecticut. Dr. Brown previously served as Vice President for Research, Planning, and Development of Mississippi Valley State University. He has published extensively in professional journals, books, and other media outlets in areas of agricultural and rural development, with emphasis on enhancing opportunities for farm families with small land holdings and addressing assiduous property in rural communities. He currently serves as an adjunct professor of economics in the College of Business at Southern University A&M College. A native of Gilbert, Louisiana, Dr. Brown earned a bachelor's degree in agricultural business from Northeast Louisiana State University, an MBA from University of Southwest Louisiana, and a doctorate of philosophy degree in agricultural economics from Louisiana State University. Dr. Adell Brown is married to Doris Gray Brown. They have 3 daughters, Brandy, Ashley, and Adele, and 1 grandson, Taylor Brown. Now I will be turning it over to Dr. Adell Brown.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All is well. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Bro. What a pleasure to see young folks do well. We appreciate your introduction, Mr. Harris, likewise for opening the meeting up. Good that you're taking time out of your busy schedule to get involved in this historic event. I think it's a very significant event. And I've been given a script that I must follow, so let me hasten to get to it. I want to recognize and appreciate the planning committee for this 20th anniversary for inviting me to be a part of this speaker series. You started off last week with Dr. Leon Tarver and the founding chancellor, Dr. Leodra Williams. And then you will follow with Dr. Gina E. Eubanks and Dr. Kirkland Millard and Mr. Butler and Neil. And I'm just so pleased to be in the middle of the mix of such distinguished individuals to share a few moments with you today about some perspectives on this 20th year celebration. As I began to think about this conversation, it's important to recognize that history and the importance of history. As we look at this moment in time, it becomes apparent that truth has become evasive. History is no longer real history, and everybody wants to figure out what is the right way and what's the appropriate way to represent history. So I come today fully prepared and equipped intentionally to deal with only what I know and that is factual as we talk about this Southern University Agricultural Research and Extension Center. So thank you for being here. I want to welcome all those who have come. I hope to have a very lively conversation via Zoom. You ought to eat this chat up, keep Ms. Lakeisha busy talking to me so she can talk back to me and help me make certain that we get through these 35 and 50 minutes together. Are we ready to get started? Let's do it. So my presentation will talk a little bit about my perspective, having worked for, I think it's 15 years with the Southern University Agricultural Research and Extension Center. I would talk a little bit about the creation of the center. I would talk a little bit about the nuances around the chancellor's appointment. We'll sort out some resources, identify what were the critical pieces of getting it started, the initial structure, a little bit about how we began to develop culture, organizational structure, began to develop an identity for the Ag Center, the branding process, and then I will follow up with some discussions on what I think are some of the critical milestones that get us to where we are in 2021. So let us get started. I want to start by recognizing history and recognizing the importance of life and the Southern University Agricultural Research and Extension Center. Though it began in 2000, 2001, we're going to talk about that in a minute. I want to really be clear from my perspective that this has been a hope and a dream of a lot of individuals way before 2000. I started this thing, got my opportunity with Brother Ashford Williams, who's our administrator, is up in the top left of the corner. And I want to walk through this quickly. Chris tells me I got to move this agenda, but these people are important and their names are worth being called. Dr. Williams, Mr. Williams, A.O. Williams was a renowned individual that gave me an opportunity to pull me out of Gilbert, Louisiana, and brought me to the university and gave me a job. I appreciate it. And he set the vision that we could achieve a lot of good things. Dr. Dolores Spikes, I worked for her on her executive staff when Dr. Williams was moving and working in Washington, D.C. And Dr. Spikes epitomized what land grant was all about. She embraced the concept, learned the concept, became a national leader. And when we got into some serious conversations, she would say, Adell, this land grant stuff, it can reach the state of Louisiana. It can become the umbrella, it can become the undergirding of the whole Southern University system. She was the first one that began to talk about land grant as a system concept. Mr. Tola White, we go to his office, he had books and stacks of old papers, budget appropriations. Often he read to me the Constitution of the Louisiana Constitution, saying what is said about agricultural extension and programs housed at the board's office. And he led the charge at one point to move this agenda forward. Dr. Bobby Ray Fields and I worked tireless during the 90s trying to get this whole concept together. We were together when it fell apart and say we could no longer resolve land grant, but we'll settle everything else. Dr. Williams, he gave me my charge and brought me into the fold, and I've been appreciative to tracking the same pastor with him for some 35, 40 years. Dr. Leroy Davis, clearly he was a dean of the College of Agriculture when I first got here at Southern University. Well, Hezekiah Jackson was the president, the dean, and he moved forward becoming the next dean. Dean set up around the 84s, began to set up the Small Farm Research Center that became a part of the Southern University Agricultural Research and Extension Center. And so it's important that we mention him quickly. Mrs. Elsie Sires, who was the epitome of what it meant to be a good extension specialist, what it meant to be a good extension agent. And so I just want to pay homage to her. James Archer, James, the one that told Dr. Hezekiah Jackson, you ought to hire Adell and bring him on to Baton Rouge. Say the boy be okay. And here 50 years later, I'm still trying to be okay. Didn't quite live up to it, but I'm trying. And so we traveled the country many miles and talking about what would it be like to have an ag center? How could we begin to put our footprint in the state of Louisiana so that we would make real significant differences? Because it's really about being able to serve the people. And so we move forward, these three individuals here, Dr. Owusu Bandele, Dr. Gabriel, and Dr. McNitt were really the founders of the the last remnants, I guess, of the Small Farm Research Center that folded into the Ag Center. And so let's deal with some dates. I tried to make certain as I slow this down a little bit, I want to get through that quickly. So let's deal with some dates. The Board of Supervisors, Southern University Board of Supervisors, established based on a committee's report in November 24, 2000, that they would create the Agriculture Extension and Research Program administered by the board as a separate campus or autonomous within the Southern University system, effective October 1, 2000. And so that language is particularly as it came out of the Louisiana Constitution, and they recited that, and then they said that the further be resolved, transferring of existing program personnel, non-formula funds, support state and federal to this institution. So when you really begin to think about where did it all begin, where is the official thing? It was November the 24th, 1920. Moving forward quickly, then in July 1, 2001, the Board of Supervisors, here again, we changed Dr. Williams' title from Extension Administrator to become the Chancellor of the Southern University Agricultural Research and Extension Center. For all practical purposes, the center officially launched its new goal, became an entity with the appointment of Dr. Leordre Williams in July 1, 2001. And so what did that mean? You have two pieces of language in front of you, one creating the center, saying what it would be like, and another one saying that Dr. Williams is now the chancellor. So this is what we ended up, we started out with the extension program, which was housed at the system level. And we had the College of Agricultural Research housed in the College of Agriculture, Family and Consumer Sciences on the SUBR campus. So by the stroke of a pen, they were able to take these two entities and move them out from where they were and create a separate and new campus, which became the Southern University Agricultural Research and Extension Center. Now, that being said, we went from being a very small entity within a big system to being a small entity among large entities. We became the 5th campus within the Southern University A&M system. I mean, we were excited, we were happy, we had gotten some recognition, some dreams had been come true. And so, but here again, what is the reality of this? What's the implication? Necessity, is the mother of invention, is necessity. So we had to then begin to say, how do we make this real? Where do we start? How do we start this enterprise that all of a sudden has gotten created? And so we had to talk about structure. So the first thing we had to do is figure out what came with it. And so we said the federal research and extension money, the state appropriation for extension, the Livestock Show and educational program, the Center for Small Business Development, which was a USDA grant, the Center for Small Farm Research, that was a remnant of the 81, 87 consent decree. All that money came with us, but no new money, no new money. This was, we were trying to create an organization without any startup capital, without any other new appropriations. And then we say, okay, now we got the personnel, we got the budget. We don't know the personnel yet, we've got the budget. So we got to then sort through the personnel. What equipment, what land comes with it? How do we do this? How do we take land and value and equipment and people and all this and still value and honor the past, especially the teaching and research partnership, which had been out there for a long time? It was critically important that we recognize that as an economist, I understand how to move numbers. But when we begin to move people, it becomes critical that you be sensitive to history, that you're sensitive to culture. And therefore, we took a lot of energy in trying to make certain that, so we had to sort it out. And so we started out, in the first priority was to create a research finance unit. And that became where we brought in the extension people and the research people who had responsibilities for money. And we began to tease out what monies go with what groups. And so I'm going to do this and come back to this one. And so that brought us to a piece that we got to start doing some strategic planning, some vision and setting some. But before then, we have to begin to say, okay, the reality of it is when you start a new organization, you've got to be able to, Chris Tillerman, move it up. Let's keep going. You got to make certain that you don't get caught up with not being sensitive, because people sat by the same place, but one would be on this budget and one would be on that budget. And so you have to make certain that they understood is why will you leave and you not go? Why wouldn't you let me stay? Because I don't know what this new organization is going to be about. So we did that work, and we were sensitive to it, and we made it work. We also made certain that we got the tagline, because we were concerned about working with people, making certain that we were always relevant, that we were always understanding that our job was not to earn a living, but to help somebody else see opportunities for success. So our tagline, linking citizens of Louisiana with opportunities for success. As we look at LBJ said you can help people with an opportunity, but you got to make certain you open the door for them. And we wanted to do our business. We knew technology and all that was going to be well. And so we tried to work with that to make certain it happens. And so as I move forward, I'm going to compress this. I want to go back here though. And I went back to this slide just to say that in 2003, we appointed Dr. Gina Eubanks as Vice Chancellor. Dr. Williams did, as the Vice Chancellor of Extension, because that was critically important. She wanted to make certain that our extension was represented, especially the field faculty, because we're in a new enterprise, we didn't want them to get lost. Dr. Millad was made Vice Chancellor of Research. You'll hear from him soon. And he wanted to make certain that he was immediately passed was the Dean of the College of Agriculture, Family and Consumer Sciences. So we wanted to make certain that Dr. Williams wanted to make certain he was in the game. And then I was hired just to fill the gap. And then Mr. Rogers, because technology was important. Now we'll quit when we quit. We're gonna give due diligence to the information we have. And when it's over, it's over. So Mr. Rogers, just let me know the time and I'll finish when I finish. So we, as we talk about the one other point I want to make certain that we make is that culture is so important that Dr. Williams took an opportunity that he moved his office out of extension and moved it toward the down on the first floor to make certain that he represented the entire Agricultural Research and Extension Center, not just extension, not research, but everybody. So that was critically important. You got to walk the talk. And so what were the milestones? We got started with very little money, probably $3.2 million. And here we want to be a campus within the Southern University system. So in 2002, we were able to get some statutory dedicated money from the tobacco, which came out to be $1 million. We were on the go. We were on the go a third. We had increased our budget by 33%. Then in 2003, we got the Paramutual money, $750,000 from Race Gaming Control Act. That was a significant piece. It took a lot of energy, but we got it done. And so that helped us out and keep going. And then something else happened that is a milestone that I must represent and speak to. Is 2004, we ended up getting a programmatic audit. They do one every 10 years for the Southern University system, and we happen to be in it. It's a new, we thought it was for bad, but it turned out to be a great thing. It set us in place to begin to understand organizational structure, identify clientele, overall management activities. And as a result of that, it helped us bring in an office of planning and program planning and effectiveness. We brought in Dr. Oscar Udo, and then we brought in an internal auditor. And we began to make certain that we were, and that prepared us to go out and begin to get grants and contracts at an increased rate. We were so pleased that we weren't pleased at first. And the final thing that audit did, it pointed out the deficiencies in the A.O. Williams Hall. We don't have time to talk about that, but we froze ourselves to death many summers and winter days, just all the time. And that building was in a deplorable condition, brand new building. And so we moved there. I want to talk a little bit about the next three things. I'm going to lock them together. We created the Centers for Rural Initiative, which allowed us to create the Southwest Center for Rural Initiative. And that was an important endeavor because it gave us an opportunity to have a footprint, our first field experiment station out in the state. We wanted an experiment station, but because the Board of Regents said it was too expensive, we went with the Southern University, we went with the Southwest Center for Rural Initiatives. And that program got off and going, and we were very successful, and it's still going on to date. It gave us a reach 10 parish area. Finally, we wrapped all this in a bow in 2006 with the settlement of the land grant. Now, the land grant didn't give us nearly about what we had worked on. We had spent 20 years asking for $60 million. We ended up getting about 3.4 million new, actually all that wasn't new money, but it gave us an opportunity to begin to say, we have put this into the legal documents, it's in part of the histories, it's official. The Southern University Agriculture Research and Extension Center is official. We got that, new money was just 1.65, but it did some other things we thought were important. It defined who we are. And I want to read this to you. Primary land grant mission shall be a community and family development with particular emphasis on eradication of poverty. Louisiana is a poverty state, so it gave us a broad platform to begin to build programs that would really, really impact the state of Louisiana, the citizens of Louisiana, the disenfranchised, the families and farms and so forth. The other thing it gave to us was the opportunity to say that we were, because higher education is very classified into structure and tiers, it said that the board shall have, we can have programs in Southwest Louisiana, we can have programs in New Orleans, we can have programs all over the place. And the intent was this is to begin to think about how do we take the system and really integrate some land grant activities in it or being co-housed at those various institutions. One point real quickly, a part of the land grant settlement was on the hill aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. So it was also seen as an opportunity to using Suno to redevelop New Orleans. Survival. We had to figure out how to survive. Now, while we getting started, there are grants and contracts and all this, we got through a whole series of years where there were nothing but budget cuts. And so I spent most of my Christmas worrying about how we're going to balance the budget, who we're going to let go, so forth and so on. And one of the 2 points I want to make out is we came together as a family, really caring about one another. Two of our renowned professors, Dr. Bandela and Dr. Magnet, decided that they would retire and come back as emeritus status and actually continue to do much of the work they were doing as retirees because they wanted to make certain that we didn't put people with families out of business. We still salute them for that. Also, the administration decided that they would take a bigger reduction. And then the civil service, we exempted them so that we could get through this. And we were successful in getting through these budget cuts without letting anybody go, by doing a few furloughs and doing some other things. I was most impressed with this. I reminisce on that work. See what I'm at now. So I want to go through and talk about the couple last pieces. One is that we have always valued the academic program. We have always valued teaching. Our faculty would continue to do the work. Dr. Udo, Dr. Magnet, Dr. Sabatu, all of them continue to work within the students and work with the students. Dr. Eubanks created a program for students to do internships with extension. And when the time came and the opportunity was there, we put forth a proposal to Dr. Belton, exemplifying and outlining very clearly, very concisely, the advantages of having the College of Agriculture and Family Consumer Sciences part of the Ag Center. And as a result of that, in 2016, the Board of Supervisors passed that and it became one. And so I think that they are now enjoying having that family of agriculture, teaching, research, and extension all under one umbrella, under one administration, moving in the directions lockstep, moving forward to make sure that students are advantaged, taking care of that farmers and people in the community, that businesses and families are all well off. I want to close with one thing. This represents about 15 years of my work with the Ag Center. My last official business for the Extension Center, the Southern University Agriculture Research and Extension Center, was to go before the Board of Regents on August 24th, 2016. And we went there because I talked with the chairman of the board, whom I've known for years, working in the community, raising money for the nonprofits. Came to me and he was telling me that he wants to merge the ag centers because of efficiency. And lo and behold, I said, man, you realize we got a consent decree, we've got a settlement agreement. This thing is in the law. But anyway, the long story short, you must forever be vigilant. And so my last act as I forgot whatever title I had at that point. August 24th, 2016 was to go down and with the Chancellor, Bill Richardson, and talk about the work we do, the importance of our collaboration, and the importance of being two entities moving lockstep to make certain that nobody in Louisiana get left behind. It's been my pleasure to make this presentation. I've gone through a lot of materials. As I was reading this book by the theologian Wright, he says there's more to say, but not less. So this brings me to a conclusion of our conversation. I trust that it's been informative. I hope that it would inspire somebody to understand to appreciate the value of the Ag Center. Also, for those organizational theorists and practitioners who want to develop new organizations, it would enlighten you on some things that you have to be mindful of as you move forward to begin to help people.
Alrighty, thank you, Dr. Brown, for that wonderful presentation. We now have some time for questions. Ms. Lusk.
Thank you. Dr. Brown, if you could make one statement if you could make one statement, what would it be on the issue of being a land-grant institution in respect to the younger generation?
I guess the one statement that this is sort of, I'm a little mind boggled on that question, but I suspect that if I was talking to young folks if I'm talking about matriculating at a land grant institution, but if I wanted to really be very practical and say that the land grant university is about the people, and it takes you where you are, the circumstances you are, cultivate you, nurture you, and help you become to achieve your goals and dreams. That the land grant is not one of those, and you read the literature now talking about the exclusive institutions and how to, and the deficiencies in them. That's just as it was very practical back in the 1800s when Lincoln started it, is relevant now that we must, as we move forward in this new age, however you want to classify, human skills and the ability to cultivate the relationship are important, and the land grant institution will provide you that opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Also, and I know you've given us a great history lesson on how the Ag Center was started and why. But what is some additional growth that you have seen in the Ag Center over the last 20 years?
Well, I think the growth depends on, if you're the finance piece, you evaluate growth based on money. If you, Dr. Millad and Dr. Eubanks, you evaluate it on people served. If you're the chancellor, you evaluate it on all. And so when we look at it, our budget has, I assume now, your budget has grown astronomically over the last, so it makes sense to have that. We have moved from 33 parishes to 64 parishes serving. We have become a national institution, so you have seen that growth take place. We see tremendous growth and the potential growth in the College of Agriculture and Family Consumer Sciences that tells us there's still value in those disciplines and that in what they are teaching and what they are offering to the individuals. We have seen growth. I think that we've seen growth in recognition because reputation matters, whether it's in higher education or with your neighbor. And as you build reputation, then people tend to track to and want to give to those who have a strong reputation. So you see the Ag Center now having a tremendous reputation, which means that its growth is unlimited. We can talk about the value of the medical marijuana program and how that positioned us understanding that medical marijuana, how it's positioned as a private entity, but the revenues from it also build capacity for us to do the many other things we wanted to do. Also, it gives us an opportunity to become one of the premier providers in the areas of research and extension, so that we can now begin to get the multi-million-dollar contracts, and so that we can then be really truly impact at another level, not that we aren't, but at another level, the people that we intended that we call our family, the small farmers, the rural communities, the urban youth, all those persons, because it's important that they do well.
So, Dr. Brown, if you had to leave the current or future administration with one piece of advice that you have learned through your tenure, what would that be?
I think I tried to position it with the last slide. Be forever vigilant. Create ownership, create community, love the work you do. Always recognize that you must forever be vigilant. You can't take anything for granted. If you're going to achieve what you're going to achieve, you must be ever focused. You must get up in the morning thinking about it and go to bed at night thinking about it. You must work the wise day. Because the Bible talks about one of those guys that say came and they knew not his name. We have seen that the government of Louisiana has begun to change the politics of it, the state of Louisiana, United States. And so as we go forth, be forever vigilant. They say the farther you look back, the more you can see the future. And so don't lose sight of what the lessons that have been learned and articulated or will be articulated through this 20-year celebration.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I know earlier you mentioned medical marijuana. Could you speak on the initiation of that and the critical decisions that had to be made with the Southern University Ag Center being one of the state's licensed holders?
Ma'am, let me tackle this real quickly. I think the thing that what we understood, what we had to understand with the medical marijuana, what it was and what it wasn't. One is that to understand how the law was put in, the undergirding of the law, to say that you had to have a third party because it was still a federal offense to grow medical marijuana. The only university had that, it was Ole Miss. We went there and tried to get in. They say, no, we don't want you in. And so once we understood that, we went out about gathering as much information. I went to that medical marijuana school in Oakland, California. I went to Denver. I studied with many of the persons around what this was, what's the evolution of it, this 10-year window to go from medical to recreational, and what the nuances with that. And then we had to come back and frame that, because I had lived long enough, and the people around me had lived long enough to know that every new venture, somebody went to jail. And so we had to make certain nobody goes to jail at Southern University, because we were going to do it objectively, according to the law, and with some level of transparency that you can see underneath what's going on. And so we set up structures. We created a website. We created a talking point. And at the same time, we began to educate. This is what it is. This is not what it is. You can't do it today. You got to wait till tomorrow. You got to wait 3 years, because it's got to go through several other iterations, because it's talking about what were those disease, what are those things that you can use it for. And that was very limited initially. And so, and the other thing that's important, being an economist, understanding what's a duopoly. And a duopoly is when two entities have the right to do something. What is undergirding that theory of duopoly in economics? And that speaks clearly to what is the relationship between the LSU Ag Center and the Southern University Agricultural Research and Extension Center. And so we cultivated all those, and we also got with Senator Charlie Mills, who we had known from previous experiences, and talked about moving the agenda forward and how we work with it, as well as the Commissioner of Agriculture.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Also, what is the legacy that you would like to leave behind based on the career that you've had in the agriculture industry?
Ma'am, I've been so busy just working and trying to survive. I hadn't thought about a legacy. I suspect that what tends to still excite me, and maybe that's the legacy. I see that we got a Dr. Rogers sitting next to me now. And I think that's significant. I know they got a Dr. York. I think that's significant. I am proud that our first Director of Development, Dr. Ernie T. Hughes, is now Vice President at Truman State University. I know that Dr. Baptiste is over at Alabama A&M. I know that you're doing great work. And so if there's a little legacy, it has to be thought of in the ability to work with people, appreciate the best in them, and move and help them. Many of them say I wasn't helping them, I was kicking them, but at the same time, they are doing extremely well. When we look at the people who were in our communication departments who are now vice presidents, and they are in the board of regents, they're in the systems office, they're all over the country now. And so I think those become the legacy. And then let me not hasten to say that we can still go back into Tallulah, Cage, Louisiana, Opelousas, and meet a farmer, meet a grandson of a farmer. And they remind us that when we stop by their house. And then I got one county agent, Mr. Hill, who was also a young teenager when I started working with his dad. Now he's a renowned county agent with the Southern University Agriculture Research and Extension Center. So I could go on, but legacy, I think that if the Ag Center continues to flourish, I can at least have some semblance of notion that I was there down in New Orleans when Dr. Williams got appointed.
Yes, sir. So the Southern University Ag Center, or Southern University, is the only 1890 that still has a livestock show. Can you speak about the importance of this, and where do you see the future of the show with so many people who are no longer raising animals, who have lost land mass and the loss of classes in agriculture?
The livestock show, I think, is critically important. I think that we have to, we have to buck the trend. One of the growing areas of agriculture now is urban agriculture. The interface between environment, the rural communities, urban communities, providing opportunities for young folks to do livestock show work and to begin to modify that. As Dr. Williams would say, it's really about the child, it's really about the student. And so I think that as long as there's agriculture, as long as there's the necessity for food, the evolution of research, creating new kinds of lean meats and healthy meat, then we ought to be teaching our young folks, and we should give them an opportunity to not only to learn the discipline of raising an animal, but also of grooming an animal and how to begin to present themselves as a professional agriculturalist or a professional person in any endeavor. And so I think the future, we must seize the opportunity. If we listen and say it's over, then it's over. We've got to say it's not over because we're going to put the energy into it to make it happen. We've got the facilities, we've got the expertise, we've got the intellect, so do we have the will?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we do.
I know you do. I know, absolutely. Yeah.
Dr. Brown, what is your view of the 1890 land grants seeking compensation for equitable funding for programmatic activities from their state? Currently, Maryland and Tennessee are being compensated for past low or inequitable funding.
I think Louisiana, clearly I've been gone out of this game for a while, so I don't know the politics. I've been gone for maybe 5 years or so. But one of the things that I think history speaks to, and we ought to never lose sight of and try to build upon, is that take that document that we settled in '06, and matter whether it's good or bad or indifferent to it, read it carefully, tease out what makes sense for today, poverty. And so we began to drive that document based on how we serve people. And if we can convince people, the powers to be, that the people have been treated inequitable, unfair, haven't had the resources they need opportunity for education, they need opportunity for training, then we become the vehicle to provide what the people need. And therefore, it's not as much about, the bottom line to this thing is that you got to get a hearing, you got to get some traction somewhere. And this is a season, I think, that provides us an opportunity to get a traction, building on our history, understanding what's happening with the demographics in Louisiana today, and putting forth a unified plan. This got to work with a team. It can't be just the Ag Center. It must be Southern University and that broader constituent base that we serve, that see jointly that we are benefiting from it and we'll support it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Those are all the questions that I have. I will turn it back to Mr. Harris.
All righty, thank you, Ms. Lusk. Dr. McMeans will provide closing words.
All right, thank you. First of all, thank you, Dr. Brown. You know what was so amazing? I actually had talking points, but over the past 20-something years, as I've seen the Ag Center evolve from afar, this is the first time that I had a chronological order and an explanation for each of those points. I always got different aspects of it. I would come to a meeting and I noticed Gina was a Vice Chancellor, and I'll see you, and you were Vice Chancellor of Administration, and Kirk, and so now all of this makes sense. And so I hope that the individuals who are on this presentation, on this Zoom and Facebook, had the opportunity to follow and learn just as I did. Although, and this is something that goes back to my communication team, so hopefully they're listening. Although I've seen bits and pieces of it, of our history, of the Ag Center's history, this presentation was the clearest and presented the most clarity as it relates to the evolution of the Ag Center. So I thank you for that presentation, and it has helped me tremendously, because as you know, in anything that in which you have had challenges, trials, and tribulations, you have to remember from whence you come. And so that the point that we're standing right now, we need to know that the sacrifices and all the people that came before us, we were standing on broad shoulders. And so I thank you for that. I thank you for your support, for your service and your dedication and loyalty, and your lineage. As you were naming all those people, I just happen to know or have met most of them. And we are, whether that be as Southern University system, the 1890 system, or higher education, are benefiting from those individuals who have come from the Ag Center. And so I truly appreciate that. And there are others here right now that I know you had your hands in as it relates to their current capacity, and they're doing an outstanding job. So I appreciate you. I thank you. And it's nice to have back-to-back presenters who are also Sigma men. So that's another good thing. So go Mob, my brother. But I really appreciate your presentation, and I will be listening to it again, and I will share it with ARD and AEA, so they also can have it as a part of their files, electronic files within their respective organizations. So many thanks to you. I also want to make sure that I thank our student ambassadors, Mr. Harris and Mr. Bro, for their roles in the event today. As I always tell students, when you go through or have an opportunity to provide leadership in such capacities, you look back on this as a growing opportunity, and that you will benefit from it. So I appreciate you young men volunteering your time. We know that classes are out, but yet you still wanted to be ambassadors and support the Ag Center and the College of Agriculture, Family and Consumer Science. And to that, I thank you. Also the communications team, led by Dr. Rogers now. I got to get used to that doctor and his great team, including Mrs. Lusk, who for a greater part of this facilitated the question and answer portion of this. A great job by his team. And also Ms. Lisa Williamson, who, when I presented this idea, took this idea and brought it to fruition. And I think this is definitely a success. We have encouraged individuals who have missed the previous one and who have missed this one. We'll encourage them to let them know that we recorded this, and they will be able to watch this at a later date. And so, and also I thank the audience, those participants who are on right now, for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know we've had some important Zooms, some important webinars this week. And so I thank you guys. I know you may be zoomed out, but I appreciate the fact that you tuned in for what I think was a very, very important lecture series. And this lecture is top notch, and Adell did an outstanding job. But I'm gonna get down to one of the serious parts, because I have to do this because we have a director of advancement that works out of the foundation. We finally got our campus with the person representing Mr. Easley, and we want to make sure that in celebration of our 20th anniversary, that you can make a contribution to the Ag Center and the College of Ag. And the only thing you have to do is just go to the Southern University System Foundation website and click Give, and then Campus Fund. Make sure you choose the right campus. That's the Southern University Agricultural Research and Extension Center, which also comprises the College of Agriculture. I don't want my money going to Suno and Susla, and definitely not the Law Center. So we want to make sure it goes to the Ag Center when you make that contribution and you hit that send. But again, in closing, I want to thank all of the participants, all of the individuals who worked diligently to make this happen, our students, our faculty and staff, and alumni who are on this call, and also to you again, Dr. Brown. Thank you very much for that quality, second to none presentation. So we appreciate it. And we will make sure that this gets a little bit mileage, and maybe something that I think about it, Lakeisha, I actually think that it may not be a bad idea to have this or some semblance of this for our freshman students, or even some of our alumni and faculty to know how this evolved. I know there are people on here that have been here through this whole evolution. But as newcomers come in, like myself, as others that have come in, it's good to have an idea of the history of the Ag Center and the evolution. And it's and speaking of evolution, you know, for as I close, this is a bit of good news. Dr. Brown was talking about as a finance person, you know, you look at it in the amount of money that you bring in and diversifying your funding portfolio. So we found out yesterday that all of the campuses got received additional funding for fiscal year 21. And Dr. Walker, I know, is on this call, but we've been very diligent down at the Capitol. I think they're tired of seeing us, but you have to do that. But the Ag Center was so successful in getting that money. We received more money than the other 4 campuses together. So that tells you that evolution and the shoulders that we're standing on. such as Leandri and Bobby and of course Adell. These individuals are the reason why we're here today and have the opportunity to engage the legislature and make it possible for us to advance this tripartite mission of research, of education, and of outreach. So with that, this ends our session for today. So please join us for our next event, which will be June 9th at 2 p.m. All right. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe and stay well. Thank you.